Behind all the glamour.
Behind the Lux listings.
A raw take on all things real estate.
All things New York City.
All things us.
Okay, so we are back with episode 4. Hey, Tim.
How are you, Steven?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks
Good.
for tuning in, guys. We get good feedback on our first 3 episodes. So we're going to do our 4th episode. And our topic for today is character over cash.
Right. So
What do we mean by that, Steven?
what do we mean? Let me first tell you, Tim and I last week, we went for a few days. We were in Laguna Beach, California for the Douglas Elliman Aspire event, which was really amazing. It's like their top, few hundred brokers, and we're all there. And it was just so inspirational. And one of the panels was Ashley Graham and Casey Neistat. And they were just, talking about themselves and being authentic and social media. And I just found it so powerful. And Tim and I were talking about that and what does that mean? And so bringing this back to our title, Character Over Cash, that a lot of what they touched on, and I think something that we all know, is that when you're really true to yourself and authentic, that's when your greatness is. Someone used to say to me, when you're vulnerable, when you're vulnerable, you're the most powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And so character over cash is a cute way of saying,
I think taking care of people, doing what's right, and knowing that will come back to you in the end.
yeah, tenfold. But that's not why you do it.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
But I think, especially in the current day, standing up for what's right is not always easy.
Right.
And I think there's so many examples.
Yeah. And I think that's where we went. So the whole Kanye or Ye or whatever the hell we call that guy, last week or the week before, whenever it was, I have my my Adidas, my Stan Smiths. Thanks, Jay Suris.
Yep.
Got me wearing those. Anyway, I went to put them on one morning, and literally it was right when all this was happening, and Adidas had not taken their stance yet. And I decided I'm not wearing them. And I thought, it's such a simple thing. Who cares? So but every person makes a difference. And I made a comment to someone, they should boycott, Adidas for not doing this. This was before they pulled out and dropped Kanye. And then when I said that, I was like, well, who's they? And why don't I say something if I feel so strongly about this? And I guess in my small way, not wearing Adidas that day was my stance. And then, of course, the next day, Adidas dropped him. And I, with pride, put my Stan Smiths back on and bought another pair of Adidas. So now I have a few. But anyway, it just got me to thinking. And Tim and I were talking about character over cash, as Adidas did, as I think many corporations have ethical, moral stances. But there's a time where that has to come over cash and profits.
Yeah, and I think they were, truthfully, I think they were late. I think they missed the window where they're pulling out of the deal with Kanye really could have had a powerful impact. But
if they did it sooner.
Yeah, I think they missed the window. I think their hands were tied when they did it and they had no option.
Right.
Do I wear Adidas? I wear the Stan Smiths you're talking about,
Yep.
but it's not a brand that I live for. So
Right.
I don't really, but I think they missed the window. But I think, it needs to, I think corporations need to, no matter what happens to their bottom line, they need to take this stance and, put character first. Because again, it just goes further and it goes in the long run. I think they'll do better. But unfortunately, these companies don't always make the right decision.
Well, they make decisions for profits,
Yep.
which I get it. We're in business.
Yep.
That's why we're here, why we have a podcast. We sell real estate. That's what brings us together.
Yep.
However, in the end, we're human beings and creating a better life, not just financially, is, I mean, that's the depth of it. If you look where things are, and I struggle with this as a parent, we live in such a consumer consumption society that I think really people lose focus. It's like when Black Friday started pouring into Thanksgiving,
Right.
and that employees couldn't take Thanksgiving off because they had to be at work by 4:00 that afternoon because Black Friday was starting on Thanksgiving.
Because someone needed a flat screen TV.
Yes, and people were
Yeah.
being trampled in
Correct.
order to get the, I mean,
Yep.
that's fucked up. It's really fucked up.
Yeah.
And what is up with, I mean, really? I don't get that.
And I think someone like Kanye, it's money, it's power, and it's fame. And I was talking about this last night with friends. I don't think, I mean, I was never a Kanye West fan. I truthfully couldn't name one of his songs,
Right.
maybe one. But, why does someone like that hold so much power in our lives? And quite frankly, there's been other things Kanye's done that we've turned our heads to. We've turned our back and we've not stood up. But this situation with his remarks, I think really got a really strong pushback.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's other examples where corporations didn't even think about letting him go.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. Obviously his comments were anti-Semitic. Okay. But then why the power? Because what does he keep saying? You don't refer to me as a billionaire. Because in his mind, being a billionaire and how much money you have and how successful financially you are, that's his great worth that he's bringing to the table. And he wants everyone to refer to him and see him that way. And by the way, he says that because that's what our society is about.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who knows me knows I love rich people.
No, but a couple years
but
ago,
not over.
Kanye said slavery was an option. And that never raised, we didn't have any of the pushback that we had 2 weeks ago.
Right.
No one was calling Adidas to, drop him. So why, 2 weeks ago, the pushback to drop him? And I just think his character has always been bad. And I think he's always been, a tough role model and a tough, so yeah, I really think, and you did say that not wearing your Adidas sneakers is like your small token, but I actually think that is, if you do that and you tell other people to do, I think that's, it has more of an impact than you think. Because what else are we going to do? I mean, what am I going to do?
Right. Anyway, it just got me really thinking, seeing that panel last week and just what's going on in the world. And I had a moment, we had a team meeting earlier today, and I literally had a moment where Stephanie on our team came in, and our children go to the same school, happens to be a Jewish day school. And I literally saw her walking in, and I had this strange flash of oh my God, if she came and told me that something happened at the school, like some type of terrorist attack or a bomb, just what would I do? It was a split-second thought. Thank God I got it out of my head. But by the way, I think about that all the time. And I hate that that's what I live with or what I have to think about. Or, I mean, yeah, it just.
I mean, that's the world we're living in.
I think yes, you're right. And I know history repeats itself. I often think that the world we're living in today, which feels so upside down to me in so many ways, not just America, is what it must have felt like during World War II and the Holocaust. Again, not for just Jews, blacks, gays, whoever it was in Germany, in Poland, in Europe, but in America, what it felt like, and hearing about things that the world all over feels like there's this energy that is upside down, that someone breaking into, Nancy Pelosi's home with a hammer to attack her and ends up attacking her husband, and not political at all, but just that's just wrong across the board. No joking about it. you just hands down say no.
Mhm.
Just like when a kid's being bullied or beaten up, it's not wrong or right. It's just wrong. And adults have to stand up, but adults aren't standing up. Adults are not being adults. And frankly, it's just so scary.
But as an adult, what do you think we've gone too far? Like, do you think we can pull it back?
Yeah, of course. You can always
I don't know because I haven't lived through like I don't think
are you citing my age again?
No, I'm just saying I don't think I've lived through these 30, in my 38 years, I think the last 5 or 6 years have been some of the craziest years in my life. And I don't know, when can we pull it back? Can we?
That's so interesting. When were you born?
84.
84. Okay.
I think it's a true statement that the last give or take 6 or 7 years have been.
I think that's so
Yeah.
interesting. Certainly within our adult lives, yes.
Yeah.
I would say I agree with that. Although the only thing I could bring to it is I lived in Israel in the 90s and experienced, thank God I wasn't in it, but certainly friends were, and I witnessed bus bombs and terrorist attacks living in Israel.
Mhm.
And remember, this was the 90s when everyone thought America was an island and so safe, and it could never happen here. And then, of course, 9/11.
Yep.
So.
All right. So character over cash in terms of our topic. Obviously, in current events, this is one example and a very impactful example. How do you think it relates to business? Because something you and I always talk about is, we do a lot of marketing, but something we want people to always know
Mhm.
is, our true characters and our, that we're trustworthy, that we're loyal. And, those are super important to us because and not just from a business standpoint, but also just from a human
It's
to
who we
human.
are. And
Exactly.
I don't think we could live with ourselves or, someone said to me, I can't lie because I blush
Right.
when I do. Or I won't look you in the eye. So I don't lie. But the best feedback I get from our newsletters or when we do our market updates is that they're even and we give both sides, and we're not just Pollyannish, just saying how great the market is.
Mhm.
We really try to give as even of a report as possible. And of course, in life, there's gray.
Yeah. I think also being upfront and honest, again, it comes back to help you and also saves time and saves, why would I want to inflate someone's, from a business standpoint? I'd rather be upfront with them and be honest and tell them what I think the listing price is going to be.
That's so interesting.
you know?
Saves time because
Sure.
yeah, if you start so high and
We're just going to
it's
sit
really
on the market.
it's going to sit on the market. You're going to have that conversation
Fantastic.
eventually.
I collected a listing, but
Right.
if it's not going to sell,
Right.
I'm just wasting everyone's time.
Yeah.
And sometimes those are hard conversations on both sides, to
Listen, no one wants conflict or have to have difficult conversations, but we're certainly in a market where we have to have more of them.
Mhm.
But what I'm finding, two things to say. First of all, we're at a point in our careers, thank God, where we can say to someone, we think that's too high price. You should go with that other broker who told you that's the price. If it's really only about pricing and they're not looking at the full picture.
Mhm.
I'm finding when we're talking to sellers and talking about what's going on and the market, and we have to have those conversations about price reductions. For the most part, no one's surprised. Thank God we have smart, educated clients. They see what's going on in the world. They may not like it or
Right.
like the news we're delivering, but
Mhm.
or necessarily say they're ready to make the move we're suggesting.
Mhm.
However, I haven't gotten pushback saying, "What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're crazy," or
Mhm.
So
And I think right now, again, getting back to being honest and trustworthy and showing our character, it's really important because we're having conversations where selling might not be the right option.
Sure.
And, the right option might be to rent, or the right option might be to reduce the price or simply take it off the market and let's talk again in a couple months.
I remember years ago, I was sitting with John Berger. Shout out to John. John and I were pitching a listing together at 4 East 72nd Street. And John made a comment that, this is years ago, that he made a comment to the seller who we were pitching to, that I had brought John in because at the time it was a very high-end listing for me, and they had known of John, so they asked if we could do it together. Anyway, so John made a comment about how he always does what's right and tells the truth, and that one of his clients, he said at the time, and I forget the price of the apartment at the time, this is years ago, 8 million, whatever it was a lot back then, 10 million. John said, don't sell. It's not the right time. And that always stayed with me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God I'm at a place in my career now where I can say to someone, it's not the right time to sell, whatever the price of the apartment. Or if you're looking to do something else, maybe it's not the time. Mm-hmm. So,
and I think honestly, this conversation that we're having ties directly into corporations and having their character, because as a consumer, it puts us in the client position of, I look at those corporations that have done the right thing in the past or have stood up for what's right.
Yeah.
And it's just like that triggers when I hear their brand, I remember they did what was right during Black Lives Matter or
right. Your comment about, a corporation or a brand that takes a stand. It's funny. So I remember during Black Lives Matter, you remember who did it first? Mm-hmm. Then everyone jumps on the bandwagon. Not for the wrong reason. I'd rather see that than jumping on the bandwagon for something negative. However, I remember who stood up for just last week, I stand against antisemitism. Mm-hmm. So, or stand against racism, or when there was anti-Muslim attacks. And I remember thinking, the first people that posted, it really struck me. Mm-hmm. Because in some ways, you have to be brave to be different. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times, I know I do it sometimes, I think, should I post that? Is that going too much the one way? Is that too political? And try to stay neutral. But being truthful is scary. And it's scary, but I think that if you in your gut, it's right, you have to always do what you know is right.
Got it. Okay, I have a section that I have a question for you.
God.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because this is a topic we discuss in our house a lot, and we don't agree, Don and I. So,
okay.
Can you separate, sort of related to what we're talking about, can you separate the artist from the art?
Okay, so no lie. Also in our meeting this morning, I don't know why I know what happened. The Woody Allen movie, Take the Money and Run.
Yep.
Did you ever see that movie?
Nope, but that's one example that comes up.
Yep. Literally, my father took me to that movie. It's the first Woody Allen movie I ever saw. My dad was a huge Woody Allen fan. I was. Take the Money and Run. Went and saw that movie. It was a double feature with Bananas. But there's a scene in Take the Money and Run where Virgil was being punished in prison, and his punishment was to go into solitary confinement for 3 days with an insurance salesman. Mm-hmm. And you see them walking in, and the insurance guy talking about like insurance, which is saying how boring it was, and that would kill him unto itself. But I literally thought, oh my God, Woody Allen, is it okay because it was 50 years ago?
Right.
Can you separate the
So let's
art
start
from the artist?
Would you play Kanye at a party?
No.
Okay. Would you play
I
Michael Jackson?
Ish.
I don't know the answer. I mean, this is the conversation.
Okay. Right. So what do you take a stand? Right. If someone does something terrible,
right.
look at Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what?
And then to your point, is there a time period where there's an aspect of forgiveness?
Right.
Is there, or is it just no?
Well, so here's something interesting. These are human beings. Everyone can make a mistake.
Right.
So if it's something where they admit, they own, and what's the word?
I think if they show like
remorse and trying to get better, not just for public consumption, but truly authentically, then I think there's something there.
So that brings up some of these corporations that got things wrong.
Right.
For example, Equinox got, as a company, they hosted a lunch for the Trump administration.
Right.
Everyone like boycotted Equinox, dropped their gym memberships. Like every gay in New York panicked because there was no other gym to go to.
Right.
And I think Equinox kind of doubled down and did what's right. They've invested in LGBTQ youth, and I think they've almost done what's right. So now it's like, can you forget that they hosted a lunch in Southampton? Like, I don't know, because I don't think we can live our lives always holding something against someone. But when it ties into a story like Adidas and Kanye.
Right. Well, it's also, soon. It's very fresh.
Yep.
So listen, look at the Sackler family and the opioid crisis. And they made a fortune. They say every great fortune, was made off of something illegal or not ethical or moral. The Sackler family have given tremendous amounts of money to nonprofits, and their names have been removed from many museums, including the Met. And so maybe over time, people will say, well, they're giving a lot of charity. They're doing what's right. They're making amends.
Yep. But when it comes to clients and our relationship, I don't think there is enough time. So that's why I think it's so important to be truthful, to be honest, to be upfront, to always show our character. Because I truly believe we wouldn't have the time to get that client back.
Well,
and I wouldn't want to lose them anyway. But I don't think, in our position, I don't think people sit around and say like, well, it's been a couple of years. Let me call that agent. That I don't think they would.
No, but as people get more successful,
maybe
their
they
mistakes
see a quality.
And those could get forgotten. You know what though? I don't think that people. First of all, I believe that there's goodness in everyone. If you look at a baby that's born, I mean, they're a pure soul. Do I believe that there are mentally ill people, that life is gray, that people can do the wrong thing in the moment or make the wrong choice, but people can make amends and can rehabilitate. So when do we know when someone's being authentic and real, when they apologize? That's hard, especially in our world with social media. Are they doing it just to kind of regain face or save face?
Well, that's the question, is like, when you think about Adidas, like, do they truly believe, like, they waited, in my opinion, they waited a couple days too long. It could have been super impactful had they done it. I think the incident happened on a Friday. They could have done it on a Saturday or Sunday. Like, there was so much push for them to do it. It's like, did they really, like, where was their thinking? And as a brand, can we have full trust in them? Because yes, they dropped him, but they dropped him late, and it was because their back was against the wall. So I guess what I'm saying is, when can we fully trust
That
Adidas?
Is so, actually, that brings up such an interesting point, because we live in this cancel society where, and you see when someone, God, we saw it seems to have slowed down, but everyone was being accused of, sexual harassment in the workplace, and they'd be dropped immediately. And with Adidas, I'm actually a little sympathetic that you've got a board. This is a huge corporation. They had decisions to make. People had to weigh in. I think you're right. Absolutely, it would have been more impactful if they moved very quickly.
But
However,
there was no
they weren't
gray
even
area there, in my opinion. Dropping him, there was no gray.
Right.
I mean, it was a outright awful thing that he did. More from the light of Adidas, they didn't have an option, in my opinion, and they took a long time. So I think to the point of now, should we all go out and buy Adidas? Not 100% sure of that, but I'm not like I wouldn't wear Adidas anyway. But I don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I wouldn't, but I'm not so sure. Some of these corporations, it's like what's driving them, I guess, is the.
Well, corporations so big. What about personally? When do you forgive someone? How bad is when someone does something to you? When do you move on or move past? And can you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. I mean, it's hard in business. It's hard in, there'll be times where, I mean, something so simple, but like a friend sells their apartment, not with us.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to like crush me, but it's just a little like,
how dare they?
Yeah. Like,
my God.
But then
now you've just struck a core.
People realize that it would have been better if they did listen.
Kirk sent me a text this morning of Chris Cuomo talking about actions speak louder than words. I said, "What is this, like a message?" He said, "No, I just wanted to like."
Was he trying to tell you something?
He said he wasn't. He just said, no, Cuomo was making a weird face. That's why I sent it. So anyway, it's certainly interesting. And to come back to, we're living in difficult times or complex times.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the core, I truly believe people are good and there's light. I'll tell you what makes me sad is that Lily, and she's been saying this since she's been 9, she's 11 going on 12, that she basically feels the world is not a good place. She's a happy kid. She loves her friends. She thinks she has a great life, but she thinks overall that I'm always saying to her, but one person can make all the difference. And a leader can choose to go in either direction.
Mm-hmm. But I think that goes to what we're saying here is that these kids saw what happened. Like they see how long it takes a company to make a decision, or they see how long it takes someone to like come around and apologize. And it's like, when I was saying like, have we gone too far that we can't pull back? No, I think we can pull back. I just think we all need to really be strong about pulling back. And when I think be a little quicker and a little more aggressive with the taking a stance and being, but I agree. I mean, it's tough for an 11-year-old to comprehend all this. I mean, we can't even understand it all.
And certainly in my lifetime, when I was younger,
right,
it wasn't being bombarded at me every moment because of social media.
Truthfully, but Lily's 11. Again, I said the last 6 years where she's really been like conscious and viewing and digesting, and she wasn't 4.
Right.
These have been some really interesting years.
Yes.
So I get it.
Okay. So a little bit of a heavier talk today, but certainly it was something we talked about. It was on our minds. But in the end, you know what? I'll come back to, and I pray Lily changes her mindset, but I truly believe that all people have goodness in them. I really do believe that. And, they say when you're making a speech, just be authentic, even if you're fumbling over words and umming, and that words from the heart go to the heart. And I believe that if you can connect with a human being at their heart place, that you can bring goodness out.
So how do you teach that to the next generation?
To my girls, hopefully I teach them by example. Lily, I reminded Lily, we were talking about COVID last night and living, when we were all living And she at one point said to me, Abba, you don't smile anymore. And that so took me back. And I said, last night we were talking, I said, do you remember when you said that? And she said, she did. And I said, oh, that upset me so much. And she said, why? And I said, because I don't want to teach my child or to not be happy or to think that her father's not happy or that I don't have the control to change I'm not saying you have to be happy in every moment or joyful in every moment, but I do teach her that you can have some control over your emotions and your thoughts. So I guess, how do I teach them? By example. And I fuck up plenty, as we all do. But do you think people are ultimately good in the world?
I think some people are. I think some people have gotten corrupted.
Okay, but that's corrupted.
Yeah, sure.
Ultimately, when you go to their core.
No, I think there's bad people in the world. I think it's a very, I can't say everybody's good.
Oh,
I can think of some examples of historical people that, no, I don't care. They're not good people.
Well, they say in Judaism, they say that certain souls cease being and they don't go to heaven.
Yeah. But I think for the most part, there's good in a lot of people. And I think finding that is important. And I'm with you. I think time, you can get over things and talk about things and grow together. But no, I don't think everyone on this planet is a good person. Because if they were, a lot of this stuff would not be happening that we unfortunately live through and watch. So
true. But some of that's taught. Yes.
Yeah.
Or a lot of it's taught.
Yep.
So, okay. Should we wrap this up?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have episodes coming out bi-monthly. And if you guys have questions on this podcast or any of our latest podcasts, feel free to leave us a question on our Instagrams. I am Tim P. Malone, NYC.
And Stephen Cohen, NY.
We'll see you guys next time.